Seahawks, how y'all doing tonight? Everybody's good? Y'all had a good day? Excellent, excellent. Again, my name is Mike Walker. I have the pleasure of serving as Dean of Students at UNCW. I've been doing that for 10 years. I also want to welcome and congratulate you as you've been congratulated today. We're thrilled you're here. We know you worked hard to get here, and we are looking forward to helping you along these next 4 years toward your degree. Let me get a sense, if I could, to get things started, where some of you are joining us from. Any students from the Northeast corridor? I'm talking Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. How about way out west? Do we have any folks from the West Coast here tonight? California, Washington State. Down south, Florida, Georgia, Midwest. Any Cav fans? Any Ohioans here tonight? Illinois? Any Cubs fans? Oh, come on now. All right, great state of North Carolina. Let me hear you. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Loud and proud. Okay, so again, my name is Mike Walker, and as you got settled tonight, what you saw on the screen here is the UNCW Cornerstone. I had the pleasure of speaking with your parents this afternoon and gave them a sense of what we were going to be covering tonight, and they got to see this as well. This was created by students years ago and is essentially a values statement that we show to all new students because in part it stands for what it's going to be like for you to be Seahawks here. Okay, so we want to show it to you when you first get here. You'll see it throughout your time here from time to time. And more than just words on paper, this truly does in many ways represent how your experience is going to be. That is me. I figured I'd dress down a little bit for you all tonight. Is that okay? Polo shirt okay for you guys? Okay, good. Excellent. I'll save the suit for fall. So here's what we're going to cover tonight, as Barbie mentioned. Community standards broadly, right? Not unlike when you were in high school. You want to know what the rules are, and in some cases what the consequences are of violating those rules. Now, the reason we want to talk to you about that up front during orientation is because we know you worked hard to get in here, right? And we congratulate you for that. We also want to make sure you know up front as young adults what our expectations are for your success so that you in no way jeopardize that while you're here. So we'll be talking about community standards in a couple of respects, broadly on campus, including in the residence halls, in the classroom, and then in the greater Wilmington community. After I speak, Mr. Bradley Davis, one of our assistant deans, will be next, followed by a very special guest, our district attorney, Mr. Ben David. Okay, so while it's probably logical that many of you knew you were going to college even years ago, you know, it was the next thing you were going to do after high school, you may be wondering, you know, really, why are you here other than to get an education? Well, what we know is that beyond what you're going to learn in the classroom, going to college provides you some really important life skills that you will use to be successful from here forward, right? Things like negotiating that first lease. How many of you think you will live off campus at some point while you're here? Yeah, great. Buying a car, signing your first mortgage, things of that nature, building your resume, right? Those really critical skills. Studies have also shown that somebody with a college education over their lifetime has a higher sense of financial security. So if you have a bachelor's degree versus, say, somebody with just a high school diploma, you will earn over your lifetime around $1.2 million more. And about 85% of you coming in say that you may even want to stay here or elsewhere for a second degree, what we would call a master's or professional or doctorate degree. You don't have to worry about that tonight, obviously, but if that happens, we know throughout your lifetime, you will earn as much as $2.5 million more than somebody with just a high school diploma. Now, it's not just about money. We know that you're here because you want to make a difference in the world, right? But financial security for you and your family is important. Along the way, you're going to sort of, whether you know it or not, who you are and who you're destined to become will evolve, right, through maturation and development. And we're really going to help you with leadership skills along the way so that your generation, as you know, can help confront many of the issues challenging the world today. Things like political indifference and poverty and global warming, right? The things that we're relying on your generation to help address. And you'll do that through selecting some really great majors that we offer at UNCW. Whether you, let me see your hands if you think you might want to go into teaching. Excellent, great profession. Healthcare, nursing, health sciences, great. Business, excellent, one of our most popular majors. Arts and sciences, which is everything else, humanities, English, creative writing, things of that nature. Excellent, okay. So some really cool majors here. There's lots of different things we could tell you through our two-day orientation in order to be successful. You're picking up on some of those things today, we're sure. You've probably already heard that we have an exceptional faculty here who are really invested in the teaching experience, right? Unlike some of our bigger sister institutions where you may have more graduate assistants teaching you, here it's predominantly faculty, professors, associate professors, because they really value the teaching experience. Important to ask questions in and out of the classroom, just like you did in high school. The session after this will focus on the importance of involvement. And what I say to incoming freshmen is really that first semester, what's most important is to just get settled academically, right? The average GPA for the first semester student here is around 3.1. The average GPA for you coming out of high school was above a 4.0. Okay, so for many of you, if you get that B average, that's going to be, it'll have been a while since you achieved a B average, but that's okay, okay? But we want you to get settled academically that first semester. Then we want your leadership portfolio to evolve. We want you to get involved on campus. How many of you think you may study abroad while you're here? Yeah, it's well over 50%. Usually it's around 45 or so%. If you do, and when you do, you'll get one of these. It's a UNC World sash, and you'll wear it at commencement, okay, to show that you studied abroad. And whether you know it or not, and I'll mention this to your parents tomorrow, it's not necessarily any more expensive to study abroad than it is to have a semester here. So if you can do that, that'd be great. This is the senior medallion, and I like to show it to the freshman class because it is the top award outside the classroom that you could achieve at UNCW, right? We only give around 25 of these per year at graduation. As you're thinking about, the next 4 years, keep in mind that achieving at the highest level is important, right? Set your goals really high. Hard work in the classroom, volunteerism, doing internships and practical experiences, community service. You can be one of the top 25 seniors who receives one of these. As you're thinking about that tonight, who are my brave folks who sitting here tonight? You're pretty sure you're going to have one of those in 4 years. Raise your hand. Yeah, absolutely, a few of you. Outstanding. Why not, right? You should all want to achieve at that level. Think of how great that would look on your resume coming out of college. Okay, keys to your success. We want you to start taking care of yourselves, as you well know, because come fall, after moving day, mom and dad will not have that responsibility. So part of that transition into adulthood is you making decisions on your own, establishing your own identity, setting some challenging goals for yourself, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, trying things you haven't tried before. Because no matter what happened in high school, if you overachieved or underachieved, this is a fresh start for you. It's a brand new experience. You get to try on new faces, establish new voices. How many of you think you may want to try to learn to surf while you're in Wilmington? Awesome. Who already knows how to surf and can teach the rest? There you go. Put your hand up high if you guys want to learn to surf. There. Talk to these folks. Who wants to learn a second language while they're here? Third language? Outstanding. Anybody have 3 already and shooting for a 4th? That's impressive. Very cool. Okay, so we want you to have those experiences here. Community service, which we know almost all you did at some point prior to coming to college, that continues when you're here. Okay, we want you to give back to your community locally and regionally. One of the events we do most years is Stop Hunger Now, where we package meals for countries that cannot afford to feed their citizenship. And this is a photo from Stop Hunger Now a few years ago. Some of our expectations for you as new Seahawks, not entirely different from the expectations you had from kindergarten forward, right? To treat one another with dignity and respect, to follow that golden rule that you've probably been hearing about for a long time, to speak up for one another when you hear offensive remarks, right? I mean, bullying has really made the media the last couple years. We're going to talk about sexual misconduct in a minute. We really want you to be civil to one another while you're here. That's a very clear expectation that we have for you as new members of our community. We want you to be passionate about the things that you care about, but exhibit compassion for one another, okay? Because you're going to meet a lot of different people here with a lot of different viewpoints. Could be religious, spiritual, political, social, okay? And that's okay. That's what college is about. But be able to feel passionate and defend your own viewpoint without necessarily criticizing somebody with a different viewpoint, right? How many of you were on a debate team in high school? So you know that. It's one of the keys of debate. You know your own position, but also understand the opposing position. Okay, so we want you to think about that while you're in college. Accountability for yourself, making good choices. The assistant dean is going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, but one of the hardest jobs I have as dean of students, outside of working with student leaders on leadership development and things of that nature, is around 20 or 30 students each year violate our policies such that we have to send them home and give them a sort of, I hate to use the word timeout, it sounds so kindergarten, but a timeout from being enrolled at UNCW, okay? We mention that to you up front because we want you to have a good time, and if you have a minor policy infraction, we'll work with you. But if you engage in things that fall so far below our standards that you need to be separated from the community, that has really significant consequences, right? So for example, you probably knew somebody in high school who may have been suspended for a week. They come back where they left off. In college, if you get suspended, it's usually for a year. You usually lose your parents' tuition for that semester, and often your grades will revert to Fs, which will calculate as zeros into your GPA. By state policy, your name goes into a database where the other 16 UNC schools see that you've been suspended, which makes it really difficult to transfer to any of those schools. Okay, so that's a really big deal. I just want you to tuck that away because most of you will not be in that situation. But I do want it to guide your thinking and how you approach your experience as you're here. Okay, inevitably this fall, outside the Fisher Center, you will be around the amphitheater area, and you will see some traveling preachers, we might call them. And they go to all the universities in the state each semester. We mentioned to you up front that they're going to be different, perhaps, from your hometown preachers and ministers in that they're really not espousing traditional religion. They are essentially trying to get a rise out of anybody and everybody who listens to them. Okay? And when you happen upon them, you really have two choices. One is to try to engage in a civil dialogue with them, which is often difficult because their goal is to insult everybody in the audience, or just keep walking, right? Just keep walking. But we want you to know that up front because inevitably they will come here. We want you to be equipped with how to manage that. Any guesses as to why a public university like UNCW is required to permit such people to come here and speak? I think I heard it. Freedom of speech, right? First Amendment? Yeah. Yeah, and we're a public-funded university, right? Okay? So just think about that this fall as you're near the amphitheater. Most of our students find it entertaining, actually, so, there you go. I mentioned those behaviors that may fall so far below our standards that could result in the, temporary separation of students from the university, ongoing alcohol violations, drug offenses, disorderly conduct at a level that is significant, certainly sexual misconduct, right? And the good news is that very few students exhibit those behaviors. But I want you to know up front what those examples would be. Let's talk about sexual misconduct for a second. Who has heard maybe in the last couple years something like the It's on Us campaign or other public messages about the problems that college campuses are having pertaining to sexual misconduct? Yeah, most of you. Okay. You're going to talk more about this at your respective safety sessions tomorrow, but we want to sort of give you a double dose of this across both days because it's significant. Inevitably this fall, you will have the opportunity, as we want you to be around Wilmington, be off campus having a good time. That's okay. But you're going to be, some of you will be in situations where pretty quickly the intensity of the situations could shift. And almost inevitably, when we experience these types of cases, alcohol is involved with one or both parties. Okay? What we want you to tell you up front is we want you to make some really careful choices in the moment when you're with each other and things could possibly go bad. The next two presenters are going to talk a little bit more about that. And the reason is because it's a really significant thing to either be the victim of a sexual assault or be charged with a sexual assault, be charged with rape. Okay? It will alter both individuals' lives for a long time. How many of you may know somebody in high school who's been victimized by sexual misconduct? Okay. And inevitably, we also want you to, when you're in situations and you can stick up for one another or dissuade those things from happening, to take an opportunity to do so. Think about your relationships with each other. And if you see harassing behaviors, we want you to report them so that we can manage them. We want you to see our definition of consent up front, because inevitably that's what it boils down to, right? If you're in an intimate situation with somebody else, make really sure there's no ambiguity that you have consent each step of the way. Now, if one or both of you are incapacitated to the level that you cannot be giving consent, that could be construed as sexual misconduct as well. Okay? So think about that as you're getting into those predicaments. We're going to show you a quick video, and I'm going to talk for a couple more minutes. I'm going to hand over to the assistant dean. How many of you have applied to live in a living and learning community this fall? Cool. That first video was actually created by students from our Hollywood East Living and Learning community 2 years ago, and they made it for use at future orientation sessions. Any thoughts on what was going on in that first video? Any obvious things that y'all picked up on? Go ahead, let me hear you. Yeah, both were drinking, right? Was it obvious that she was becoming more inebriated as the video progressed? Yeah, pretty much so. What else? Did you see somebody try to step in as a bystander and prevent it from going down, right? And then afterwards, she went to an office called the CARE office, which is in DePaulo Hall, which if something of this were to ever occur, or you would be helping with somebody who's victimized, that's one of the best places you can go to or have them go to, is the CARE office. Before I introduce the assistant dean, there's another guest I want to introduce tonight. Outside the classroom, things that you're going to experience as a student here, whether it's involvement in a club or organization, leadership opportunities, the residence halls, are under the charge of our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Ms. Patricia Leonard. So I want to introduce her tonight and have her give a wave. So say welcome, Vice Chancellor Leonard. And let's give it up for our awesome Assistant Dean of Students, Mr. Bradley Davis.
Thank you. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Can y'all hear me? Good? All righty, so welcome again to UNCW. Uh-oh, getting a little echo. Am I good? Cool. Welcome. So I'll spend a couple of minutes with you all kind of talking through our campus conduct process. Not that to scare you or scare you away, but more so to be informed so when you do come back, and really starting now while you're here during orientation, so you understand what the consequences could be for behavior that could jeopardize really your chances of being here. So the first thing is that when we talk about our honor pledge, which you see behind me, you all will have the opportunity to sign the honor pledge. It will hang on a long banner outside along the stairwell. There's going to be a place where they're going to hang it. But you all will have the chance to sign the honor pledge. And this is something we take very seriously because you are here to get an education, and we want you to do that in an honorable and respectful way and to do it with integrity. Okay, so meaning in the classroom, there's no cheating, plagiarism, those sorts of things. But also, if you see those things, that you're reporting those things. Okay? Why that matters? The first thing is that it's important for you all to understand what the rules, what the policies are. Because if you are documented, if you are cited for a policy violation, the excuse of, well, I didn't know that was a rule, can't be used. Okay, so it's important that you all understand what those policies are, how they're phrased, where they're located. All those things are important. Okay, now you can find the honor code in the Code of Student Life, which is on our website. You can Google search it, Code of Student Life, but you will find the honor code in that, as well as things related to non-academic conduct. Okay, so meaning all of our violations that range from damage to property, to file sharing, to alcohol and drug policies. Okay, really important. With honor code violations, briefly, the first thing, it could devalue your degree. So if you've worked hard, you've been studying your entire time here, and then you learn that maybe somebody else, maybe a friend, or maybe somebody who lived in your residence hall, or somebody else in your class kind of just cheated their way through, that could devalue your degree. Okay? With that, it's not fair to you. It's not fair to other students. Okay? So it could happen. It's going to happen. We recognize that, but we want to lessen that. We want to eliminate that from happening. And that starts with educating and knowing what the right thing to do is, which you all know. Okay? It could have real-world applications. Right? So think about, and this may be an extreme example, but think about maybe someone who cheated their way through school, through medical school, right? And you have to go to the doctor. Now you're seeing a doctor who really doesn't know what they're doing, right? They have that fancy degree on the wall, but they didn't really, study. They kind of just cheated their way through. Now you're like, oh man, you really don't know what you're doing. Let me get up out of here. Okay, now that's an extreme example, but it does have real-world applications. Okay, and then lastly, it could weaken your character. No one wants to be known as a cheater or someone that took the easy way out every single time. No one wants to be associated with that. And as I stated before, we want you to report those things when you see them. Okay, if you want to do that anonymously, okay, that's one thing. If you want to just tell a professor after class, that's another thing. But we want you all to say something, okay? Now, we have this philosophy that good people sometimes make poor choices, which we believe, in that our conduct process is not intended to be punitive, but more educational, okay? So we want, if you were to make a mistake, we want you to learn from that to get to a place where you're not making that mistake again. Or we've helped you, we've connected you with a resource that you've gained something that the next time, okay, maybe that's not the right thing for me to do, okay? Where you can start predicting consequences and knowing what could be at stake for doing something else, okay? So we recognize that, this is not a judgment on anyone's character if they were to come through our office, but recognizing that students will be held accountable at the same time, okay? So when we think about our campus conduct process, to me, what's most important is that if students do come through our process, they're treated with respect, they're treated fairly. I understand, I recognize that sometimes the student's not going to like every decision that I make or every outcome of a hearing, but if that's done in a respectful way, if a student's been treated fairly, if their due process rights were not violated, that's most important. Okay, so when you get referred, if I could just put this out there, if you get documented or get cited by your RA or by the police, the easiest thing you can do in that moment is to be compliant and respectful. Okay, they're not out to try to document every single person. I can guarantee you that RAs, probably that's the last thing they want to do. But if it happens, the one thing you can do is be respectful and compliant throughout the process. That makes things a lot easier. But if you are found responsible, if you go through our process and you are found responsible for a conduct violation, then there are certain things that we would try to institute to help that doesn't happen again. Okay, that could be educational. So that could be taking an alcohol class or a drug class or a crossroads office. That could mean community service. Okay, that could mean if it's some type of damage, you may have to pay for the damage to be repaired, whatever that may be. If you are engaging in illegal file sharing or downloading, we could take your internet privileges away for a certain amount of time. But also, you could be given a written warning, okay? Placed on disciplinary probation. Oh, hello. which in our office is for 1 year. So when you're on disciplinary probation, you will be considered in bad conduct standing, meaning that some things could be jeopardized. So if you want to apply to be an OL or an RA, or you want to be a part of SGA, those things could be jeopardized by being on disciplinary probation. Your ability to study abroad could be taken away. Okay? And if it gets beyond that, then you could be suspended from the university, as the dean mentioned. And in the classroom, your grades could revert to Fs, which would negatively impact your GPA. With your conduct records, we maintain them past your graduation. Okay? So think about that when you're applying for graduate schools, or if you are applying for a job, and these things have to be reported. Okay? Not to say they're deal breakers, but again, you don't want these negative things associated with you as you're going out trying to get a job or try to get some leadership position. Okay? We do background checks all the time. Folks will come in, government agencies will call us, other institutions, they're going to ask about your conduct history. So it's really important that you think about all you have to lose by making maybe one or two poor choices, because it could be a lot. The last thing is that our process is cumulative. So if you have an incident your freshman year, it doesn't just go away at the end of your freshman year. We calculate all those things into your conduct record. They don't just go away. Okay? A few things in the classroom just to highlight, because I know you all know these things, but be respectful of your instructor and your other classmates. Not everyone may agree with what your opinion is, but at the same time, we ask that you are respectful and civil in the classroom. Okay? Read your syllabus. Know what is going to be expected of you for all of your classes. Show up on time to class. Sit in the front row. If I give you any tip, sit in the front row. Right? You walk into class the first day, no one's there. First thing in your mind, I'm going to go to the back of the room. Sit in the front row. Okay? And then lastly, turn off and tune in, right? That doesn't say turn up and tune in, okay? So turn your cell phones off. Stay off your cell phones. Now, I'll let you all slide tonight because, this is the first time you're hearing this. Wink, wink. But I know there are a couple people in here who have sent a snap to their friends back home like, yeah, I'm in orientation. Woo, go Seahawks, right? It's happened. You've sent a few text messages, but in the classroom, that's not acceptable. Okay? One thing you can start doing now, as you think about what your next step will be after UNCW, is taking an inventory of your social identity or what people may associate with you online and your online presence, right? So here are a few questions to think about, but at the same time, think of yourself as a brand. And when you get out of here, what do you want people to associate you with? Okay? That's really important. Really, really, really important. Take advantage now. Take an inventory during the summer of what your online presence is. Because those employers are going to look. I can guarantee you that. Now, this last slide, I'm just going to quickly breeze through it, just some pictures. But I don't want your experience to be defined by things like this. Right? Right? I don't want to put that up there too long, right? But I don't want your experience to be defined by those things, by those moments. You're going to have a good time. There are going to be social opportunities, but don't let that define your entire experience. And the last thing, if you want to get involved in our office, you can be a member of our campus conduct board. You can be a member of our student academic honor board. Applications will go out in the spring semester. Okay? So with that, I thank you all for your time. I want to introduce our next speaker, who we are glad and privileged to have with us, is our district attorney for New Hanover and Pender counties, correct?
Yes, sir.
Got it. Mr. Ben Davis. So I'll turn it over to him. Thank you all.
Thank you. Hello, Seahawks. Now let's try it again. Hello, Seahawks. A little better. All right. You've already heard Dean Walker mention that if you violate the student honor code, you might have to go see him or some of the other people in this administration. But let's be clear, there's no bubble around this campus. So what happens here doesn't necessarily stay here. And what happens out in the community might also be reported back. In fact, Mike and I are on speed dial with each other. Sometimes I have to tell him, Mike, you wouldn't believe what happened at this off-campus party over the weekend. And sometimes he's picking up the phone and saying, Ben, we have to report. It's not just a principal's office. It's here. And raise your hand if you've heard of the concept of double jeopardy. Double jeopardy. It's a constitutional amendment, right? What does it basically say? Sure. Can't be punished twice for the same offense, is what you were going to say, right? You can be punished twice for the same offense as it relates to being punished once by this institution, which could include suspension, expulsion even. But you can also be punished down here at this building. I don't want to see you down here. I don't want to meet you as a defendant. I certainly don't want to meet you as a victim. So that's why I've come here tonight to talk to you at your house, to have an adult conversation about choices and consequences. Raise your hand if you think you're an adult right now. Really? Oh, come on, it's more than that. You're telling your parents you want to be treated like one, right? Well, I have good news. I have to treat you like an adult. Because if you're 16 or older, and I know you are, you're as old as your grandparents in the eyes of the law. It's when the stuff that we're talking about tonight goes on that proverbial permanent record. You don't go to juvenile court anymore. You actually go to adult court, adult jail, adult prison. And the stuff that we could talk about follows you for the next several decades. That starts at age 16. We're one of 2 states, New York the other one, by the way, where it's 16. Raise your hand if you're 17. Okay, a few things about being 17. You're not old enough to smoke a cigarette, right? Got to be 18 for that. You're not old enough to get a tattoo, at least not without your parents' permission. And if you're naked on the internet, it's called child pornography. Raise your hand if you're 18. Yeah, you're allowed to do all those things. So this should bring up something right now. This should bring up something right now. I'm not here to teach you right from wrong. Hopefully your parents did that. I'm not here to be your DAD, I'm the DA. Okay? I don't think you can teach someone right from wrong after kindergarten. I think that's really early on kind of stuff. I'm here tonight to talk about consequences. So let's do that. Now, raise your hand if you came here like me because it's got a beach. Be honest. It's more than that. Okay. You're here to have fun and to learn, right? We also have the largest historic district in all of North Carolina. It has a beautiful downtown, cobblestone streets, Cape Fear River running through it. It's a great place to be a tourist. It's even a better place to live. But you know, there's a place that probably a lot of you guys are thinking about now that you've already reached adulthood. Maybe you want to get into here. Let's be honest with ourselves. There's a dynamic question at the door of a lot of these places now, isn't there? You've watched enough movies and TV to see that, right? You know what the ABC tells me? That's the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission in North Carolina. 44% of college students in North Carolina will have a fake ID before their 21st birthday. So I am not here to have a theoretical conversation with you. I'm here tonight to talk about consequences, and let's not pretend we didn't have this conversation if I see you down at the courthouse. Okay? Here's the first thing. There's 2 ways to really get a fake ID. One is to go on the good old internet. You can go onto one of these websites from a foreign country. You can buy one for $60, 2 for $100 if you got a friend. Can't even tell. So why wouldn't you buy one? Well, if you get caught with one, and you will, because the bouncers, and we've had talks with the bouncers now, they used to just hand it back to you and say, get out of here. You don't even know your own birthday. You don't know your sign, that kind of stuff. Not anymore. We have downtown patrols. We have beach cops that run those places now. And what happens is they collar them and say, we got one. Now you're in a drug treatment court. You're on probation. You're basically now down at the courthouse. And your real license for using a fake license, it's not a right, it's a privilege to drive, right? Just like your cell phone and your parents used to ground you. And the state of North Carolina will take it away for 1 year for using a fake ID. Now, the other way to get an ID that'll get you into the club when you're only 17 or 18 is to have someone that looks a little bit like you. You know what? I have an identical twin brother. And so it doesn't help me that much. It didn't help me back when I was 18 because he's only 3 minutes older than me. But some of you have a sister or a brother who looks a little like you, or a cousin, or one that's going to be on this campus in the fall that might look a lot like you, and they're 21. They go into the DMV and say, I've lost my license. No, they didn't. They gave it to you. They're getting a duplicate. Okay? What happens if you get caught with their ID? You lose your real license for a year, and so do they. That's the law. So just risk reward. You guys get to decide if you're going to do that. If you're going to be one of the 44%, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. You don't want to be perpetrating identity fraud and then try and get into grad school right now. Here's someone else who asked for ID. It's not just bouncers, it's cops. You know how many tickets, traffic tickets, are going to be in my district this year? 75,000. That's 1 out of 3 of you each year. If you get a ticket, I need you to remember to do one thing. Do not email me, because I can't respond to all of you, okay? There's an app. You can go to my office and actually look at next steps. We have a video for next steps. You're probably going to be set on a Friday, which means we're going to work really hard to keep it off your license and off your insurance. You're going to go to a 4-hour driving school, and when you do that, it's going to be gone, okay? That's if it's something like speeding, stoplight, stop sign. Just come down to court, we'll take care of it. Okay, sound fair so far? Going to see you that way, and we're going to remember each other and say, hey, if this is the worst thing you ever do, it's a great life. I got my first speeding ticket when I was 17. I hope you don't think I'm here to say I was better than you at your age. Okay? But here's what I can't help you with. I can't help you with the decision I see about 3,000 people make every year in my district. It goes something like this. You're at the party. You can't believe you're there. It's jumping off, and you got invited. And so here you are. You're going to be the designated driver, what they call the DD, right? And you want to fit in. It's called peer pressure in high school. I don't even know what you call it in college. But there you are trying to fit in. You're just having one beer. You're kind of nursing it. So after a while, it's time to go. There's only one way on and one way off the beach, and that's where you were that night. And here it comes. There's a checkpoint. Easiest place in North Carolina to get stopped, Wrightsville Beach. And so there you are in the car. The officer's doing one of these things with the flashlight into your eyes. Have you been drinking? No. You lie. No, I haven't. Well, then you wouldn't mind blowing into this machine now, would you? It's a little handheld device that kind of looks like an asthma inhaler. It's called an Alka-Sensor. You think you have to blow into it? You've heard about the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to an attorney, right? That's not me, by the way. That's a defense attorney. Do you think you have to blow into it? Well, you don't have to. I mean, we can't make you, right? But this isn't Burger King. You don't get to have it your way. Again, here's what the law says. The law says if you don't blow into it, we'll take your license away for 1 year regardless of what the results would have shown. Again, driving is a right, not a privilege. And an officer has the right to take your breath away, is what you're signing on the line for when you get that license. And so you hear that, you're like, give me the machine. I'm going to beat the test. You know you can do the alphabet. You know you can do the walk and turn test. You know you can do the one-legged stand, no problem. You're going to beat the FST, the field sobriety test. You blow into it, 0.03. Whew. 0.03. What's the legal limit? What's the legal limit? You've seen the billboards. What's the legal limit? 0.08, right? So what do you call this? DWI. It's called driving after consuming while being under 21. Any amount of alcohol in your system is impaired driving under North Carolina law because you're not 21 yet. Guys, again, not here to have a theoretical conversation. What does that mean in good old little Wilmington, where we're going to have 3,000 this year? Average DWI right here, when you talk about attorney's fees, court costs, fines, maybe the interlock system on your car to make it start every time, $10,000. That's what that beer just cost. So here's what I need you to remember. If you've had anything to drink, and by the way, it's not drunk driving, it's impaired driving, so any drugs in your system, even prescription drugs, it says don't operate heavy machinery for a reason. If you're having anything in your system other than food and non-alcoholic beverages, do not get behind the wheel in this town. Of course, that's not the only way that you can get stopped when you're driving impaired. so's that. So straight up, guys, here's why I came tonight. It's because I own this phone. It's the worst phone you can own. It rings anytime one of you dies. And it's been ringing far too much over the last decade I've been your district attorney. I want to lay it out for you. 2 weeks on the job. This is back in 2004. I'd been a violent crime prosecutor for 5 years at that point, but now I was the elected DA. I was 34 years old. Good friend of mine, young cop, just a little bit older than you guys. He rolled up, 5 in the afternoon. This young person about your age had just been killed in an impaired driving accident. He had never seen a dead body before. He was so desperate to try and keep this young man alive, he literally was trying to blow air into this kid and put a bag over his head to keep it from escaping. And so his sergeant came. He was a little bit older than this young officer, and he said, we got to go tell the family. At this point, it's dusk, it's getting towards dinner time. So this sergeant and this young officer go up this crooked path in this beautiful neighborhood because he's a local kid. And they come up on a scene. They actually look through the bay window of this beautiful house. They see this. It's not the actual family, but this is very much how this family appeared. They were having dinner. There was obviously a mother and father, and there was a young boy, turned out to be the brother, who was laughing so hard that food was coming out of his mouth. And the sergeant goes to knock on the door. And my friend, right before he does, says, wait, I want to give this family something. And the sergeant says, what on earth could you give them right now? And my friend says, 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. It's all we can give this family. Before the new normal. Raise your hand if you just graduated from the high school where someone died in an impaired driving wreck. Yeah, for those of you watching at home, that's over half the crowd. And you know what? It doesn't change now that you're here. Guys, I know this got heavy in a hurry, and you know why? Do you know why it's so heavy tonight? Not because this doesn't happen at any other college in America too. It does. We are strong enough to talk about it on the first night because I don't want to meet your parents this way. You know, my only goal for you is whatever decision you're going to make, whether it's that picture we could talk about that you could put on the internet or that situation you could take advantage of, guys, that we're going to talk about in a minute, or getting behind the wheel when you've been doing something that you know is not right. What I want you to remember is my only job for you is to fill that empty chair at the end of every semester. And if you do that, we're going to be good. And as for the chair you're sitting in right now, the reason why this talk feels so heavy is because there are 6 invisible people sitting in your lap right now. That's right. 7 people applied to be in this class, but you won the right to be here because you're that good. One of the best classes we've ever had here at UNCW for the class of 2020. Give yourselves a hand for that. You guys are leaders. All right, be honest with your DA. Raise your hand if you think we should legalize marijuana. Okay, I'm not judging that. Seriously, you're not in any trouble for your opinion. It's a First Amendment right. Okay. Practical advice, it's not too late to go to the University of Colorado. Still do that. I just got back from a ski trip right there, and man, medical marijuana is flowing like a river out there. Guys, it's not legal here. And because of that, I have a job to do. I don't get to write the laws, I have to enforce them. Oh, I'm going to do everything I can to keep it off your record. Just like with alcohol, I'm going to work to get you a deferred prosecution. No one's going to prison for this, by the way. Don't believe the hype, okay? Unless you're selling it, and that's a totally different story. I'm talking about with underage drinking, with the drugs we're talking about, we work very hard to keep it off your permanent record after you've been on probation. But guys, here's the thing. The only person worse than running into than the police with marijuana is a drug dealer. And I have to tell you, you can't go to CVS or Walmart or Eckerd's and say, I'll have a quarter pound of marijuana, please. Can't do that here in this town. Instead, you deal with a drug dealer. They have cell phones too. They can't wait to show them to us when they get arrested and say, you want to see all my customers? You want me to wear the wire, Mr. David? I've got some big targets we can take down. Don't put someone else in charge of your life. And on the issue of health, guys, dealers know that marijuana is not as physically addictive as some of the other substances we can get into. And so you know what they do in my town? They spike it. They put formaldehyde on it, which is what they use to embalm dead people, and they call it Love Boat. Or they put PCP, or they dip it in heroin, anything to get you hooked the first time and come back for more. You wouldn't put that within 100 yards of your body if you've seen some of the labs that I'm seeing. So guys, don't make this part of your college experience. Whatever you think you're getting, you can't be sure. We've talked about two of the big three. The other one, of course, is pills. And you know what? We've had more overdose deaths in North Carolina as a result of these pills than heroin and cocaine combined last year. If it's not your prescription, don't use it. I don't care if you cuten it up and call it a Skittles party or a farm party or something else. It can get really bad and tragic in a big hurry with these pills. And by the way, that's the gateway drug to heroin. If you were wondering, 8 out of 10 heroin addicts start with opiate addiction with pills. Don't go there. After alcohol and marijuana, it's the third most abused drug in North Carolina with people ages 12 to 17. Now, I put this visual up to show you what would happen if there's an overdose. And we had 50 last year, fatal overdoses in my town. So here's the thing. You're at the same party we just talked about. Someone's going into cardiac arrest or having labored breathing. You're like, what do I do? The answer is you call 911. You know that's the answer. Be like, Mr. David, how unrealistic. Everyone's drinking underage. There's some other illegal substances going on here. I'm going to get the whole party arrested. I'm not going to be able to live in this town after that phone call. So here's the law now, because we heard you as prosecutors and police. And actually, we marched up to the legislature a couple of years ago in Raleigh and said, change the law. We get it. Underage drinking, drug use is a problem. This is a bigger one. So you know what? If you call 911, if you seek medical help for anyone at the party, including yourself, we can't arrest you for underage drinking. We can't arrest you for heroin, cocaine, meth, any pills. Absolute immunity for that. If you agree with that law, why don't you clap? So she could be in this room right now, 18 years old. It's not a yearbook photo. She's now 33 years old. She's still in the New Hanover County Jail tonight on something different. I think it's probably prostitution at this point. It started out right here as shoplifting, because when you get hooked, you'll do anything to afford it. My point is not all the stuff that is what I call the secondary deviance of drug use. It's what it does to your appearance, because I'm looking around and I can tell that a lot of you really care about how you look. This is not off the internet. This is Wilmington. This is 2.5 years later, same girl. I call heroin suicide on the installment plan. There are so many substances we could talk about. Drug dealers won't tell you what it does. I'll always be straight with you. I'm your DA. This is what drugs does over even a short amount of time. So there's a quiz, A, B, or C. The answer is D, all the above. And you know what? Here's how this case happened. The guy in the middle just got out of prison for 10 years in Philadelphia for trying to kill a cop. And when he came down to my community to sell drugs to you guys, he didn't fit in quite so well at the party. So you know what? He enlisted the help of the other two guys. Well, they had 5 pounds of hydroponic marijuana in their car and a gun when my friend Rich got the call that they were fleeing from the police. And as they were throwing out these individually packaged bags of marijuana during this high-speed chase, and these loaded weapons also, Rich reached a speed of 102 miles an hour and then lost control of his vehicle, struck a tree. You saw it already.
That was his car.
Rich was the only officer killed in the line of duty in the last 30 years, and it was over good old-fashioned marijuana. So yes, I put the guy who was driving in prison away for second-degree murder. What did you expect? But the other guys, the ones who were, we didn't know? Yes, you did. I don't care who your daddy is. 12 years, 13 years, just for playing. Guys, my expectation for you is this. If you're here to have fun, I forgive a whole lot. But if you've come into my community to sell drugs or to hurt somebody, I have a job to do. I hope you understand that that's my expectation for you. You're an adult now, you've got to start acting like it. I keep this card in my desk. When you care enough to send the very best, right? So here's how it happened. Young woman on this campus fell in love with this guy, actually ended up losing her virginity to him. He was an abusive guy. He was the kind of guy, and domestic violence to me is really all about power and control. It's about manipulation. It's about social isolation. Don't hang around with your friends anymore. I want to be your world. Your mom, don't talk to her. Don't talk to her. Let me see your phone. I want to see the last time you talked to her. That kind of thing. Well, then he starts hitting her. Friends probably knew what was going on, but that's their business. Friends who used to know her, she seems withdrawn. Well, her mom knew, and this guy's such a manipulator that when he hit her, and they'll always do it again, by the way, he decides to write the mother a letter. And this is the actual letter. I don't have time to read the whole thing, so I'm just going to read the highlights. Again, he's promising, Mom, I love her. I'll never hit her again. I'm so damn sorry. I give you my word that I've never physically harmed your daughter. That happened in 2004 when John shot Kristen 14 times with an AK-47. And a month earlier, Curtis, he killed a classmate as well. So I started coming here 12 years ago to really start talking to the young women about reporting domestic violence. And then I started talking to the guys individually because I realized a lot of people weren't talking to their sons about this. And then they started putting all of you guys in the same room, and I just started talking to all of you. Guys, domestic violence is not okay. We're seeing the ripple effects right now with the NFL and everything else. Just had Terry Bradshaw in this town on Friday, got to hang out with Terry, and he called it out. He said, real men treat women with respect. Any guy who hits a woman shouldn't be worthy of playing in the NFL. If you're a guy and agree with that, why don't you clap? Hey, you know what? I just watched the video with your dean, and I heard that 70% of you are standing up to interpersonal violence right now. Who's the 30% who isn't? I mean, did any of you guys catch that too? Who's the 30% on this? You're here to be a leader, guys. I should hear 100% the next year that I'm here. If you agree with that, why don't you clap? Hey, Stanford's a great school. We can all agree Stanford's a great school. You saw what happened last week, right? Guys, I have a son, and believe me, he's going to hear this from me too when he's your age. No means no. And if you speak Spanish, because I heard some of you are bilingual, no means no, same word. The inability to say no means no also. If she's passed out like that, guys, even if it was going to be yes if she was up, even if her body said yes and her mouth said no, it's rape under North Carolina law. Why is everyone so upset in Stanford right now? Because he only got 6 months. I hope you don't think this is just going to the dean's office. That guy should have got at least 7 years, and if I was the district attorney, and I know the judges in this town, he would have. If you wonder what it's like to be suddenly awakened in the middle of the night with someone touching you, try prison. All right, one more thing about this. One more thing about this. By the way, 95% of sexual assaults on a college campus, impairment by the defendant or the victim or both. So if you're here to look out for yourself because your mom's not here, don't get into that situation. Speaking of percentages, 88% of the people who have stuff broken into, whether it's a car or a home or their bike got ripped off, they didn't lock it up. Again, I'm not here to blame the victim tonight. What I'm saying is, look after your stuff, look after yourself. You've known right from wrong since you were in kindergarten. Finally, here's a quick way to make $100. Talk to your parents tonight or in the morning and say, yeah, the DA came in and talked to me, and he came up with this great idea. He freaked us out with these pictures of cars hitting trees and talked about his phone and how it rings. And he said something about, I could still get a graduation gift. I mean, I know we just had graduation, but she gave me this cheesy book, the Places You'll Go. And I don't want that. Actually, that's a really good book. And I'm going to give it to my kids one day. And a couple of them are here tonight. But what I was going to say is this. Ask for $100 for Uber, for a taxi. If I'm in a bad way and I need to get out of the party, can I call one of them? Because you're too far to call. You live in the Triangle. You're in Charlotte. They'll say yes. That's a quick $100 right there. It's a quick way to make sure that you're safe that night. I'm also a professor on this campus. In the fall, dozens of you can join me at a law and order class where we go from 911 call to verdict. I call it Crime on the Cape Fear. It's really my decade with murder cases and armed robberies. You're going to meet the mayor. You're also going to meet the chief. You're going to go on a jail tour and see the courthouse. If you want to do that, I love meeting you that way. And for 8 of you, you're going to get to be interns in my office and work 150 hours down at the courthouse and get 3 course credit hours that way. Dan, who's coming up next, that's how I first met him. As a freshman in an honors class, he went on to become my intern, and now he's your class president. Guys, that's why I'm here. I'm here not to create a bunch of followers, but to look out for leaders. Because education actually comes from the root word educare, which means to lead. And that's what we expect Seahawks to do. So over this next 4 years, I look forward to seeing you in class and out in this community. God bless each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much.